What's up, guys? Hopefully you guys all had a good day yesterday. So I thought I'd do a video today talking about Johnathan Joly and the YouTube short that he put out last night. So it's fair to say that he got a lot of negative attention on that video yesterday, and the reason for that was because of the way that Amelia was dressed in that video. Because to be honest, the way that she was dressed in that video really wasn't appropriate. You know, she was wearing a crop top that basically showed off half her figure, which we didn't need to see. And she was also wearing shorts that were way too short, to be fair. Um, and obviously, it didn't look right, the fact that and a lot of people were saying this, a lot of people were saying that he shouldn't have been showing that Johnathan shouldn't have been showing her in videos dressed like that because it wasn't appropriate. There's a lot of creeps out there on the internet. He knows there's a lot of creeps out there on the internet. He knows that would get a lot of that would generate a lot of attention from them. You know, I feel like this is one of the reasons why Johnathan. There is a big reason why Johnathan gets a lot of hate, and it's for the fact that he's putting his kids out there out there online in a way that he knows will generate a lot of negative attention, and will generate a lot of attention from creeps and things like that, and that's why he gets so much backlash. This is what I don't like: is parents putting their kids out there online in a way that they know will get a lot of negative attention, and that is exactly what Johnathan is doing and has been doing for a very long time. Is he's putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will get a lot of negative attention, and in a way that he knows will get a lot of attention from paedophiles and child predators on the internet. And it's disgusting, and it's disgusting that people are continuing to try and defend him and say, oh, you're such a great dad, when he's putting his kids out there online in that way. And it actually amazes me that people can't see how disgusting that is. And we all know why he's doing that. We all know exactly what he's trying to do. People weren't trying to be mean. People weren't trying to be horrible in any way towards Amelia. People were trying to protect her. That's all people were trying to do. No one. I mean, yeah, maybe there were a few um, horrible comments towards Amelia on the video, but mainly people were trying to protect her more than anything else. That's what it came down to. The reason that people were saying, there were that was the reason why people were saying that he shouldn't be showing her dressed like that in videos. You know, a bit like when people say that he shouldn't have his 8-year-old child in the thumbnails doing the splits. You know, there's a good reason for why people are saying that he shouldn't be using thumbnails like that, which is obviously the sort of thumbnails that he's used for the last two videos that he uploaded last Saturday and on Wednesday. Both videos had Alessia in the thumbnails doing the splits with her legs wide open. And I did a video talking about this on I think it was yesterday. I think I did a video talking about this, or it might have been the day before, on Thursday, and I said I thought it was absolutely disgusting, the fact that he had his 8-year-old child in thumbnails like that. And then yesterday we see this video where Amelia certainly wasn't dressed was dressed definitely very inappropriately for a YouTube video. And I think at the end of the day, I think Johnathan, as a father, should be making sure that his kids are dressed more appropriately for YouTube videos and things like that. Like, I wouldn't have shown Amelia online in the outfit that she was wearing yesterday. I wouldn't have thought it was, if I was a parent, I wouldn't have felt that it was appropriate to show her online like that in that way. But we all know, like, and this is what I'm saying. He's putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will generate a lot of negative attention. And he needs to stop doing that. He needs to stop putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will generate so much negative attention. At the end of the day, the rage baiting at this point has become so obvious and undeniable. People saying, "Oh, he might not be trying to rage bait." He absolutely was. He knew, he knew full well that this video, that YouTube short would get a lot of negative attention from people, and a lot of people would post negative comments on that video, and that is what he wants. He wants the negative comments. He loves the negative comments. I bet he was loving the negative attention and the backlash that he was getting from people in the comments of on yesterday's video. I bet he loved that. I bet he was absolutely loving that. If that's what he wants, you know, he's doing these things because he wants that negative attention. He knows that the things that this is the thing. He knows he's not stupid. He knows that a lot of the things that he's doing will get that negative attention, and that is what he's trying to do. He's an absolute fucking moron. There's no denying how much of a fucking idiot that guy is. And at the end of the day, like, people can't be blamed for having a go at him over that. People can't be blamed for calling him out over things like this, because what he's doing is just so wrong, and it's so disgusting. Like, the fact that he's putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will get a lot of negative attention. I mean, I know I criticise the Sullivans a lot, and I know, obviously, but can you really say that Ben and Zoe put their kids out there online in a way that they know will generate negative attention? I can't really say that they do that. Maybe some people do think they do that, but I don't know. It's the same with Family Fears and Dad v Girls. I can't say that they've ever put their kids out there online in a way that they knew would get a lot of negative attention. You know, I think the Inhams are guilty of doing a lot of things that they knew would get a lot of negative attention. I think we've all known, I think we've all seen that. We've all seen them do a lot of things that they knew would get a lot of negative attention. Because obviously they were looking for that negative attention. They're another pair of idiots who actually, love all of the negative attention they get, and love all the backlash that they get for doing certain things that they do. And this is, and it's obviously the same with Johnathan. He loves that backlash as well. He loves that negative attention that he's getting from people, over things like this. And I don't think people are wrong for saying that he shouldn't be putting his hits out there online in a way that he knows will generate in a way that he knows that will get a lot of negative attention. That's why I just don't agree with. I don't agree with the fact that he's doing things like that. It really, and I think at the end of the day, I think someone needs to have a serious conversation with him about what he's doing. Because I think it's become very, very blatantly obvious at this point what he's trying to do. Like, I think if he wasn't putting his hits out there online in that way, in a way that he knows would get so much negative attention, I probably would have a little bit more respect for him. But it's hard to respect a father who is doing the sort of things that he's doing. And people are still trying to say that he's such a great dad. If he was such a great dad, he wouldn't be showing his fucking 12-year-old daughter dressed like that in videos. He wouldn't have his 8-year-old daughter in thumbnails doing the fucking splits. Oh yeah, that's a great dad right there. Since when would a great dad do things like that? And we all know why he does things like that. He's one of the most sick-minded individuals I've ever seen on the internet. I thought Chris Inham was bad. Yeah, Chris Inham was probably worse than Johnathan due to what he did, sending sexually inappropriate messages to teenage girls. That probably gives him the edge, but Johnathan Joly is just as fucking bad. He's just as much of a creep as Chris Inham is. I won't say that he's more of a creep than Johnathan than Chris is, but he's definitely just as bad as him. The guy has fucking pervert and child predator written all over his fucking forehead. That's what I think when I see him. The words child predator and pervert are words that always seem to come to mind when I think about someone like Johnathan. And I don't want to think, as I said yesterday, I obviously, because I said, in yesterday's video, you know, that he was a pervert and a child predator, and, I knew that I wasn't going too far with that. The same thing. I mean, I certainly, I did say I wasn't going to go as far as calling him a paedophile because I knew that branding him a paedophile would be taking things way too far. Obviously, no one has any. I mean, there's no real proof to suggest that he is somewhat of a paedophile, but I feel like there's a lot of proof out there to suggest that he's somewhat of a child predator, basically somewhat of a pervert as well. You know, like his thumbnails, the way that he has his dressed in videos, all of that sort of shows what kind of pervert he really is. We can all see we can all see just how bad he really is. You know, and it's just disgusting the fact that he's putting his hits out there online in a way that he knows will generate so much negative attention, and in a way that and obviously will get so much unwanted attention from pedos and child predators on the internet, and people can't see how wrong that actually is. People say, people will try to deny that, say, oh well, he ain't doing that, but he definitely is. You can see that he's doing that. That's exactly what he's trying to do. There is no denying that. That fact alone is undeniable. And it's so clear to see that he's putting his hits out there online in a way that he knows will generate negative attention. There's no denying that. It just pisses me off the fact that people keep trying to justify the things that he's doing. Because at the end of the day, there is no justification for the things that he's doing. There's no justification for for the way that he has it's in the thumbnails. There's no justification for the fact that he had a the fact that he had a media dress so that he was showing a media dress so inappropriately in a YouTube short. You know, I think he probably, as I said, I think he probably knew that a lot of people would come on that and say that the way that Amelia was dressed in that video was way too inappropriate, which it was. There's no denying that the way that she was dressed in that video was completely inappropriate, and he shouldn't have been showing her online in that way. He shouldn't, it, it just, it scares me to think about the sort of creepy attention, the sort of attention that these kids might be getting from creeps and things like that, due to the way that their father is choosing to put them out there on the internet. You know, which is why I think that the authorities need to start stepping in, because because what he's doing is disgusting, and I would go as far as to say that he feels like he's actually putting his kids in danger, and he's putting and it feels like in a way, it feels like he's putting their safety at risk. By what he's doing, using these thumbnails, like the thumbnails that he's using, showing his child dressed so inappropriately in videos, you know, it's just disgusting and beyond inappropriate, and someone needs to do something. People were trying to all people were trying to do with that on that, on that yesterday's video was try to protect the media. That's all. That's what it came down to. People at the end of the day, people can see what he's doing. People can see that he's putting his hits out there online in a way that he knows will generate a lot of negative attention. Everyone can see that. There's no denying the fact that he's doing that or disputing that, because it's become I feel like that fact alone has become so undeniable at this point. Like, there's the rage, as I said earlier, the rage baiting, from him at this point has become so blatantly obvious and so undeniable at this point. You can see that he's rage baiting. It's like the fact it's like with the thumbnails and everything. He knows that he'll get a lot of negative attention because of the thumbnails that he's using. he knows that people want him out for that, which is why he uses those thumbnails. You know, I mean, I think he's probably fully aware of the negative attention and the backlash that he's been getting over these thumbnails. He probably knows that people don't agree with them, but I think the problem with him, I think, he's someone that doesn't care about protecting his kids as much as he should. Like, he's not. This is the thing. Like, he just doesn't feel like he's protecting his kids in the way that he should be. It doesn't feel like he really cares about protecting them. It feels like all he cares about is exposing his kids to paedophiles and child predators in whatever way he can. It feels like all he cares about is it's generating that negative attention. And all he cares about is getting that negative attention in any way he can do that. You know, it's not hard to see why people like him have become so controversial these days. And people see what he's doing. People see how wrong he is. People know that what he's doing isn't okay and isn't acceptable under any circumstances or on any level. It's absolutely wrong what he's doing, and it needs to stop. But sadly, it won't stop. It won't stop until he won't stop doing what he's doing until people stop trying to defend it. That's it, people, why would he stop what he's doing when he knows that so many people are going to jump to his defense all the time? When he knows that people are always going to be there to tell him, what such a great, amazing dad he is. That they're basically enabling him to do when people are posting comments like that and trying to defend him, they're basically enabling him to do the things that he's doing. They're basically enabling him to continue basically to exploit his kids. But it's not the child the child exploitation is bad enough, but it's not the exploitation of the kids that is really the issue anymore. The issue now, the more the issue is the way that he's putting his kids out there online. And the fact that he's putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will get so much negative attention. And I don't understand why he's doing that. I don't understand why he as a father is putting his kids out there online in a way that he knows will generate so much negative attention. It's like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to why as a parent would you want to put your kids out there online in a way that you know would get so much negative attention from people? I don't understand that. I don't understand how anyone can defend him and defend what he's doing. I don't understand how people can continue to say that he's not doing anything wrong. It has to be said. It really has to be said that, you know, I honestly don't know what else to say. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say, really, other than this is absolutely disgusting and it needs to stop. Simple as that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye.